Hello, this is D, and I'm back with another video, and today we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Now, Digital Foundry did their weekly direct where they broke down the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, they went through a host of games. Richard also gave us some more context on what he was saying to IGN in their interview when he said that you need a 4070 to match a PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, today we're going to have an idea of what Digital Foundry believes the PlayStation 5 Pro's GPU is equivalent to on the PC side. We also have some updates to PSSR. PSSR basically received an update. We have some information about that. We have so much stuff to talk about today. It's going to be primarily about the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I know a lot of people want to know about Digital Foundry saying that the PlayStation 5 Pro was below a 4070.
It kind of came to a head the other day when I did a video with Destin on IGN. And he was asking me this question directly, and I said, well, you've got to start with a GPU that has the features of the PlayStation 5 Pro, and the closest equivalent at the moment, I would say, is the RTX 4070. What I should say is that the 4070, I believe, has more raw GPU performance than the PS5 Pro. I do think it's over 45% faster than the base PlayStation 5. So we're talking about a downclocked 4070. And then you've got to scale all of the extra costs on top of that. But yeah.
So I'm going to just quote my ex tweet here, and I said, let's talk. Based on the latest Digital Foundry Direct, Richard says that the PlayStation 5 Pro is a downclocked 4070. They all agree it is greater than a 6800, but lower than a 4070. Ray tracing, DLSS, and raw compute are greater. Also, they said that you need to benchmark the PlayStation 5 Pro. They need to get it unlocked so they can see the real performance. That was said, and I'm going to show little parts of their video today. Now, of course, over time, we're going to get more tests, so they are going to get to produce that footage where we see the PlayStation 5 Pro unlocked. Now, a 6800 is only 10% behind a 4070. So this is not the win that people thought that it was. They're very close. Now, if you slot in the PlayStation 5 GPU in between the 4070 and the 6080, you see there's not a huge difference in rasterization performance. So, you know, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. If you want to say that the 4070 is more powerful than the PlayStation 5 Pro because it does have more features, it can do things that the PlayStation 5 Pro cannot do. So let's be fair here. But also, you know, it's not lower than a 6800. So it puts it right in the middle. That is fantastic performance for a console, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. You know, a lot of people are also talking about the quality or the resolution that PSSR is using. The machine learning AI upscaling that's on the PlayStation 5 Pro, PSSR, that will get better over time. They changed the models. Now, DLSS, when it first came out, it was horrible. A lot of people forget about that. It wasn't running well. XESS from Intel, it was running pretty badly when it first came out. Now, they updated the model over time, and both of them are fantastic now. Now, it's machine learning, so it gets better with each iteration. So it's going to get better on the PlayStation 5 Pro. And since the reveal of the PlayStation 5 Pro, it actually got an update for PSSR. Now, this is coming from Moore's Law is Dead. Like usual, I'll leave a link in the description down below. Now, he said a lot of things on a recent stream that he had. I think it was about 2 days ago. Now, he got some PS5 Pro early testing from a developer, and basically the developer is working on a PlayStation 5 Pro game, or they're testing it. They gave them leaks before, so they're a credible source for him. He says that the PlayStation 5 is doing 1080p to 1600p dynamic resolution, mix of medium and high settings, runs at 45 to 60 FPS, frame rate isn't locked at 60, occasionally drops to 45. Now, the testing on the PlayStation 5 Pro, the game is running 1600p up to 4K dynamic resolution with no PSSR, all settings set to maximum quality, runs locked at 60 FPS with no frame drops. They are currently looking into trying out 4K and 120 Hz mode. Now, he talks about the PlayStation 5 Pro adding an 8K option, and we know this because Gran Turismo is using that mode. He also said the PS5 Pro has access to an extra 1.2 GBs of memory due to the memory system efficiency, and that documents from Sony state that the PlayStation 5 Pro in practice exceeds the 28% bandwidth increase. PSSR just got an update from version 9.0 to 9.4. It had an image quality quality issue, and it uses 250 megabytes of RAM. So these are pretty good updates, and as we get closer to the PlayStation 5 launch, we're gonna see more and more footage of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Eventually, Digital Foundry is gonna have a unit in their hands where they're gonna be able to benchmark it. And they did say that in their video. They said that, listen, it's not a 6800 because it's not. We don't have the hardware to benchmark it. So this is an estimation. We're having fun. This is an estimation. They also said that it's lesser than a 4070. He said it's a downclocked 4070. Now, a downclocked 4070 is about 8% difference. That would slot it in between a 4070 and a 6800. That is a very good metric. So I don't understand all the people happy about this saying, you were wrong. You said it was going to be a 4070. It's not a 4070. It's a downclocked 4070. It's still a 4070. Are you trying to tell me that that is not a good metric? People want to downplay the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU. It is fantastic. Digital Foundry said that this GPU is powerful. When Digital Foundry was analyzing the footage from the live stream event last week, they said that Dragon's Dogma was running at 60 FPS. Now that game has a CPU bottleneck. So right there alone, that should tell you that the PlayStation 5 Pro, we need to do more tests on it because it brought that game up to 60 FPS. We were all told that that game is CPU bottlenecked. Everyone's saying that every game that is CPU bottlenecked is going to be bottlenecked on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I will say this, I do think that some games are still going to be bottlenecked on the PlayStation 5 Pro, but some games are going to be able to achieve a higher frame rate. Maybe they get up to 50 FPS and they use PSSR and it's running better, or they put frame gen on it. I'm not quite sure. But some games will get up to that 60 FPS. Other games might get up to like 45 and they'll unlock it with VRR. The games that are GPU bound will go up to 60 FPS because there's just a lot more performance on the PlayStation 5 Pro's GPU over the base. And most games are GPU bound, not CPU bound. They also said in their video today that the 45% performance in actuality is probably going to be more on the PlayStation 5 Pro. That was also good news. So don't let people tell you that it's all bad news. They also said that PSSR is miles better than FSR. It's not perfect. And like I stated, over time, it will be updated. DLSS, all these other technologies, when they first came out, they weren't even as good as PSSR. So PSSR is off to a great start already. And before this console is released, we might see another update. I just reported that Moore's Law is dead, said that the PlayStation 5 Pro got an update for it to help with the image quality. Over time, you're gonna get new iterations of PSSR. It's been like that for DLSS. It's like that with EXSS. That's the way the technology works. It's machine learning. It gets better over time. It's driven by AI. The fact that Digital Foundry confirmed that it's much better than FSR is good news. People out there saying, oh, the Xbox has FSR, it's going to be the same as the PlayStation 5 Pro. It's not even remotely the same. And then I saw some other posts, people saying, oh, FSR, a new version is coming to the Xbox Series X, and it's going to be like PSSR. No, it's not. It doesn't have enough hardware on there to do what the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU is doing with its machine learning AI. These are the facts. And in fact, the next FSR will also be on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro. So it's not a win. There's a lot more tests. We actually need to get the console in these guys' hands so they can test us and tell us the true performance. Now for Elden Ring, Digital Foundry believes that that game will be running at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro. That is huge news. Now they said so much today. I want you guys to hear it for yourself in case you didn't watch it. So I'm just going to play little snippets to confirm everything I just said. And then we're just going to get into more details on the PlayStation 5 Pro.
But we have got this ProRes asset. Now, ProRes is essentially the compression, the codec that's used primarily by the broadcast industry. And it's an intermediate codec of extremely good quality compared to what you generally tend to see. And it basically means that we can actually see the presentation, we can see the games, kind of like the way that they're actually going to present on the screen. So this is kind of like a big deal.
For FSR, the first thing I want to talk about is that it's way better than FSR in a lot of ways.
You hope so.
So you'd hope so. And that's the whole point of PSSR. And that's what we want. So for example, like if you look at the crowds in the stands, they are like every single time they like clap and move, there's like this massive like garble behind them and on their arms as they move and get up and down. That's from the FSR view. But in PSSR, they are much cleaner. They're a bit over sharpened looking, but they don't have that bad movement look, which characterizes FSR. And it's the reason why when we talked about FSR 2 originally, it's like, oh, in stills, it's fine enough. But as soon as the image starts moving, that's when it gets really bad. And yeah, if you look also at the shot of Ratchet here in the front, like as his hand moves up and down, there's none of that like that breakup and that fizzle along the edges of his hands or on his face as the hand gets in the way. It's all way better in PSSR. But if you look at the distance, in the first part of the video I sent you here, Oliver, if you look at this tree in the background, one thing that I noticed with PSSR is this like finer sub-pixel detail of the little leaves on the tree. It is like constantly shimmering. And if you look over the image, it's actually got a lot of that in this game. And, you know, the rest of the movement stuff all looks, I would say, finer actually in DLSS quality mode. But given that this is the first outing that we've seen of PSSR, I don't expect it to be beating DLSS, kind of like with XeSS, where it's going to take time for the model to improve. And this is, you know, this is just something that you have to deal with. But yeah, so first impressions are, I also compared it to DLSS performance mode, just for giggles here, and there you can notice that DLSS performance mode does like stabilize that tree in the distance, subpixel detail there, more than PSSR. But if you look at the edges of opaque objects, DLSS in performance mode has like a cross-hatching effect going up like vertical and downward. And that's something that doesn't appear there on PSSR. I think it just shows, as my first impressions of PSSR from this really high quality footage, is that it is better than FSR2 in a lot of ways. The core ways that made FSR2 not good, it's better. So I think that's awesome.
Which is a little bit smoother. Like Alex said, it is very smooth, but it's also absent of some image artifacts that we often see with other kinds of upsampling solutions or just TAA in general. I think it's probably not using PSSR. And if you compare PS5 and Pro here in the one shot that I did manage to scrounge together with the PS5 in its performance mode, which is an 1800p checkerboard resolution, the detail is definitely higher on PS5 Pro. It's resolving more detail in the hair in his shirt, more of the skin texture. It's got cleaner edge detail. The scene lighting is also a little bit different. Like Alex said, there's that difference in the shadows, which is a little bit weird, but it is a cinematic shot, so it's hard to be super certain about that one. Personally, I think it's probably, if I had to guess, a 4K checkerboard, which would comport with the PS5 version and its 4K checkerboarded balanced mode.
I'm really more interested in the people that use that power for transformative differences. Like I do like if a game would change the way ray tracing is done. Or
right, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think we've got to keep in mind that all of these developers are working on other projects, and these would have been retrofit patches for the PS5 Pro. And if you think about if you think about the complexity, the amount of effort that went into devising and then refining Horizon Forbidden West's performance mode to actually rip all of that work out and then put in PSSR on the off chance that it's better, it probably wasn't worth the developmental effort. So this might actually be interesting in a different way, Alex, in that it's actually about using the extra performance for features and an image quality bump. But maybe we'll see something different from them next time around with their next actual first-party title. I
would be curious to see if we see evolutions of PSSR over time, because right now, in this title, it, due to the lower resolution rendering of RT, it's much more easy to see that internal resolution. And I feel like that's like not so great looking, but the one thing that did look really great with the RT reflections was how it's nothing like Forza Motorsports. They are high quality. They seem to reflect a lot of the surroundings. A lot of the cars are in them with a good look to the car in the reflection. You can see like a lot of that in the footage here, as well as when they show the internal shots of the cars from those replay footage. You can see like rougher plastics and rubbers are also getting reflection, something that is not at all in Forza Motorsport. They just look good.
There are some rare cases where the 6800 is actually faster than the kind of 45% uplift that we expect. There's any number of reasons for that, of course. But I've got to stress here that I'm benchmarking an RX 6800. It's not the PlayStation 5 Pro, right? And without access to the actual PlayStation 5 Pro hardware, we can only project performance based on general ballpark specs. So it's just a bit of fun, right? Even then, with a potentially higher differential, the 6800 doesn't lock to 60 frames per second. So in the confrontation with the Dragon here, for example, with a bunch of fire and water effects in play, frame rates are dropping into the 50s. We actually get hands-on with PS5 Pro. We'll be able to use this quality mode with its locked resolution and locked settings to get an idea of the real performance increase up against the base standard PlayStation 5, right? So assuming Game Boost does actually deploy the full power of the PS5 Pro's bigger GPU, hopefully there'll be some good news there. Elden Ring might actually run locked at 60 frames per second for the first time on a console, God be praised. But this does all kind of assume that we won't be CPU limited. Dragon's Dogma 2 and Assassin's Creed Shadows.
It does look like the game is running at 60 FPS instead of the unstable like 30 to 40-ish that the PS5 manages at maximum settings. It's possible the settings differ a bit here and it's using different settings, like not involving the RTGI. Unfortunately, the clip is such that I couldn't really tell, and it has that annoying black crush issue as well. So I have to like try to normalize the gamma, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I'm really in uncharted territory in terms of trying to evaluate this versus a PlayStation 5 output. But one thing I did notice is that it might be using PSSR now, because on camera cuts, I'm not seeing the same ugly checkerboarding artifacts and like the flying beast in the feathers of that flying beast. I'm not actually seeing the kind of stippled checkerboard artifacts. We're actually seeing like missing pieces that the sky is shining through. But here on areas of very fast motion in the scene, I was pulling out 864p for the resolution. It is running at 60 FPS here.
So The Last of Us Part 2, 1440p internal resolution at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro, and it's running it with an improved image quality due to PSSR. Now, it looked much better. It was much smoother. The details were much more pronounced. It looked better. Now, apparently they didn't do much to it because Digital Foundry believes that a lot of these updates, they were just like quick patches because these teams are working on other things. So as we get closer to the launch, I do expect these games to get more updates, and I expect the performance when it's closer to the PlayStation 5 Pro's launch to be quite different. So we're going to have to revisit this. Now, once again, we have to remember that Digital Foundry was analyzing the footage that Sony sent them. They don't actually have a PlayStation 5 Pro where they can benchmark that. So they're working with the information that they have. Now, Ratchet & Clank, they say, is running from 1440p to 1800p, and it's being upscaled to 4K with PSSR, and it's using the performance mode of the PlayStation 5. Now, I saw a lot of people clowning this, saying, oh, it's 1440p, it's 1800p, it's not going to 4K. This makes absolutely no sense. What type of technology do you think machine learning is? What do you think DLSS does? What do you think that XESS does? They upscale from a lower resolution and give you a near 4K, sometimes even better than 4K image quality. This is what they do. DLSS uses 1080p to 4K, or they use 1440p to 4K. So this is a good result. I don't understand that. And they were impressed with PSSR's performance compared to FSR. They did say that DLSS was better, but like I've told you, over time, machine learning, it gets better, and it's just going to get better. It's off to a great start, which is being a lot better than FSR. The image, it doesn't even compare. You saw them on the side by side. I'll put it up again so you guys can see it to refresh your memory. It doesn't look anywhere near as good as PSSR. Now, the downer was Alan Wake 2 for sure. They showed it at 864p at 60 FPS and 1260p at 30 FPS, and that was kind of disappointing. Now, they weren't quite sure on the modes, which mode had ray tracing or not. Like, you would presume that the 2060p at 30 FPS mode would, but 864p is a little bit low. I'll give it that, because DLSS, to my recollection, I don't think it goes down as low. I think it just goes at 1080p is lowest if you want to get up to 4K. So that is a little bit lower. So I'm hoping that this will get patched closer to the launch. They also said they only had 6 seconds of footage to go over, so that's not really that much time. So we're definitely going to have to revisit this, but I can understand some people's concern with this. But then once again, Dragon's Dogma, that got up to 60 FPS. That is definitely bottlenecked on the regular PlayStation 5, especially in big city scenes. So bringing it up to 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro, in my honest opinion, is a huge thing. It gives me hope for GTA 6. Now, GTA 6, I can't say it's going to run at 60 FPS. If I had to guess, it's probably going to run an uncapped 40 FPS frame rate. So you'll probably get like 42 to 45 FPS. You use VRR, and that's your performance mode on the PlayStation 5 Pro. That's if I had to guess, but who knows? Maybe it's possible that they do get it up to 60 FPS. Now, I'll say this. If they were able to get GTA 6 up to 60 FPS, it would be a console killer, a console seller. People would actually go out and buy the PlayStation 5 Pro to have that game run at 60 FPS. On PC, that game's not coming out for at least a year, 2 years. So if it's available at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro, believe you me, it would sell a lot of consoles. So I have a little bit of hope seeing Dragon Dogma's performance on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Some games are still going to remain bottlenecked on the PlayStation 5 Pro because the CPU, it's still the same as the base model. They offer a 10% improvement in performance, but it's still the same CPU. So we cannot expect miracles. Now, Horizon Forbidden West. They said the resolution didn't look like 4K. They think it was not using PSSR, that it was using 4K checkerboarding, and that the PlayStation 5 Pro had higher detail and just better resolution over the regular PlayStation 5 version. So that's also very good for the PlayStation 5. Now, that is a very good looking game. So to have it running at a higher resolution with more detail on the PlayStation 5 Pro is a win. Now, the ray tracing on Hogwarts, I don't think it's really worth talking about. It was pretty much running at 30 FPS. They said it will have a 60 FPS mode, but the ray tracing, although it was much improved over the regular PlayStation 5 version, it still wasn't perfect. And yeah, it's running at 30 FPS. I'll say this from playing the game on PC, it is pretty heavy on the CPU. Just the engine's just really heavy overall. So I don't know if it's just going to need some really deep optimizations, but I wouldn't really expect that game to be running at 60 FPS on the consoles with ray tracing. And I understand that some people are going to be disappointed in that. And they're saying, then what's the PS5 Pro for? And that's a valid question. So hopefully we're going to get some more examples of games that have ray tracing, that are running at 60 FPS, that have great performance on the PlayStation 5 Pro. The 2 to 3 times performance increase in ray tracing over the PlayStation 5 is good. But if we're also using that metric, it's falling behind what NVIDIA is doing over there on their hardware. Now, Gran Turismo 7, they said it had an 8K mode. They said that the 4K mode, the reflections were like in 1080p, and they would like to see the reflections be a little bit higher. That it looked good overall. It looked a little bit softer than 4K, but with the ray tracing, it looked pretty good. Now, ray tracing on the track is a pretty big deal in Gran Turismo. They actually took a couple of swipes at Forza. They said although they would like to see the reflections resolution be a lot better on the PlayStation 5 Pro, that it's miles beyond Forza Motorsport. And you know, that right there kind of spoke for itself. And that's what I'm kind of saying here. The PlayStation 5 Pro is going to deliver the best looking visuals that you're going to get on a console. Dragon's Dogma 2 running at 60 FPS is fantastic. They said that Assassin's Creed Shadows was running at 60 FPS. They said Assassin's Creed was running at 864p up to 60 FPS, but it was resolving a near 4K image. So once again, if you're getting 4K-like output at 60 FPS from 864p, I think that's a good result. Once again, like I said, DLSS, XESS, all of these upscaling techniques that use machine learning AI, they use it from a lower resolution to build up to 4K. Now, 864p isn't 1080p, it's a little bit lower than that. But let's just say it's within 5% of DLSS image quality. Is that really a bad thing to get that 60 FPS? Because it's certainly much better than what we can get currently on any console. And they also went as far to say that you're not going to be able to build the same thing on PC for the price of the PlayStation 5 Pro. They said you can build something better, but you won't be able to build something the same that the PlayStation 5 Pro offers. It just can't be done. And I've said that time and time again, the price to performance of consoles, it just can't be beat. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is PSSR. Now, a lot of people are saying PSSR is not RDNA 4, and that's just not the way it works. Now, AMD and Sony, they work together. They have done a lot of stuff together. Sony pretty much confirms that the ray tracing that's on the PlayStation 5 comes from the next generation RDNA 4. I'll get into that in a little bit. But PSSR, that is also going to be an RDNA 4 because they also announced that they're finally using machine learning AI. Now, the PlayStation 5 Pro is the first console to use this, the first AMD hardware that has this feature, but it's coming to RDNA 4 whenever it releases. So they are the same feature set, because I saw some people sending me stuff saying, look, RDNA 4 is out. The PlayStation 5 Pro is not going to have that. They are the same thing. Or the ray tracing, look, they announced all this ray tracing on RDNA 4. The PlayStation 5 Pro is not going to have it. They are one in the same. Now, Cerny describes his relationship with AMD, and I think this best sums it up. So I'm just going to play this clip here so you guys can see it, and then we'll just kind of finish up on this.
I know they're working on a new version of FSR, but you don't need any sources to know that. Of course they are. And I do know that once Sony finished up PSSR, they sent it to AMD to reverse engineer if they wanted to. So I would imagine there's going to be some teaser for the next gen FSR when they announce RDNA 4. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I don't think they're going to have like FSR 3.5, you know, something that can, you know, I don't know that they will have that ready at launch, but you know, they've been working on it for years, so let's hope.
But that feature set is malleable, which is to say that we have our own needs for PlayStation, and that can factor into what the AMD roadmap becomes. So collaboration is born. If we bring concepts to AMD that are felt to be widely useful, then they can be adopted into RDNA 2 and used broadly, including in PC GPUs.
So you heard it for yourself what Mark Cerny said. He says that they work together, and that if he sees the features that they implemented or that they suggested in the next GPU stack, they know that their collaboration worked. And we're seeing this with RDNA 4 ray tracing. They pushed AMD to make their ray tracing better, and everybody on PC to consoles is going to be better for it. I don't understand why console players are upset about this, because this is going to benefit the next generation Xbox. Who do you think makes that hardware? AMD makes the Xbox hardware too. I don't understand why Xbox guys are so upset about this. For over a year, Xbox fans have been telling me that the PlayStation 5 Pro is not real. And I responded that if the PlayStation 5 Pro is real and Xbox doesn't have an answer for it, Xbox fans will be upset. Now, of course, a lot of people said, no, we're not going to be upset. It's not going to matter. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have an Xbox, and if I only owned an Xbox, I would be upset that Microsoft is not giving me a mid-gen refresh as well. Now, Microsoft said pretty much that the Series S and the Series X is the mid-gen refresh to the Series S. So that's just crazy. Hearing some rumors of a handheld, and you know, I got to look more into that, but a handheld is still not a console. Now, a handheld, I do think would help the base. I think it would help hold them over until the next generation Xbox comes out. And I think it has the potential to do something special if they put the right hardware in there. Now, that remains to be seen. But as of today, Xbox has no answer to the PlayStation 5 Pro. And that's why we're seeing a lot of people showing these $900 builds, trying to build a PlayStation 5 Pro for the price of like $600, missing components because they don't have an Xbox next generation refresh. You know, the next generation refresh is pretty much a diskless Xbox Series X. They also have a limited edition Xbox Series X that has a 2 terabyte hard drive that's $600. which is $100 less than the PlayStation 5 Pro. So please don't tell me that the PlayStation 5 Pro is not a good system, that it's not going to provide a huge uptick in performance over the regular PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Anybody saying otherwise, it's cope. It's the honest truth. Now, is the PlayStation 5 Pro going to be as powerful as an RTX 4070? We need a lot more benchmarks. Now, I would say in rasterization, it's going to be very close. I think ray tracing and DLSS will be better on an RTX 4070. Nobody was expecting the PlayStation 5 Pro to do ray tracing or path tracing or ray reconstruction anywhere near the levels of NVIDIA. Some of those features won't even be on the PlayStation 5 Pro. They won't be able to do ray reconstruction. They won't be doing path tracing. And nobody said it would have that type of power or be more powerful than a 4070. But I do believe that it will be within the same range, especially for rasterization. And once again, people can lie, but numbers do not. Digital Foundry stated that it's not a 6800, but that's the closest thing that they have. They also stated it's not a 4070 because they feel it has more raw compute. So that would mean that it lies in between. When we look at the relative performance on the GPU charts, a 6800 is only 10% behind a 4070. Now you tell me, do you think that's going to be bad for the PlayStation 5 Pro? Or do you think it's going to be a good thing? Do you think it's going to give it greater performance over the PlayStation 5? Because when I look at the specifications, the Xbox Series X is nowhere near what the PlayStation 5 Pro can do. It's still really early days. We need to give these outlets time to get their hands on the PlayStation 5 Pro, where we can get more realistic benchmarks on what to expect the PC counterpart to be. As it lies right now, it's in between a 6800 and a downclocked 4070. And I don't know why people think that's a big L for me, because that's like within 8%. And that's the closest thing you're going to get to a PlayStation 5 Pro. And I think that is a huge accomplishment when we can't find a GPU to match the PlayStation 5 Pro, that the closest one is the 4070, and there's only a difference of 10% of where the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU lands in between. Anyways, you guys just let me know what you think about this. Am I tripping? You think I'm capping? What about what Richard said? It's a downclocked 4070. Do you think we're going to get more performance? Digital Foundry believes that in practice, we're going to get more than 45% increase in rendering performance on some games. What are your thoughts on Dragon's Dogma going from 30 to 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro? Let me know all of these things in the comment section down below. And like I usually say, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys on the next one.